The philosopher Peter Singer really bothers me. He asked, if you happen by a pond where a small child is drowning, and you don't jump in to save the child because you're afraid you might ruin your clothes, that makes you a horrible person. Okay, that's easy, I get it. But then he asks, if you buy a fancy cup of coffee and you know that there is a child somewhere who is dying and that those few dollars could save that child, what does that make you? He's a very troublesome person, and he bothers me, this Peter Singer. I guess because I grew up Catholic, and so I grew up wanting to be good. I mean, I guess when I was a very, very small Catholic, I wanted to go to heaven, and I was scared to go to hell. But I also really, really liked dinosaurs. And they were from hundreds of millions of years ago. And as I grew a little older, I really liked space movies. And while I understood that a lot of the details in the space movies were made up, space was not made up. Carl Sagan was not making up that billions and billions stuff. Space was real. And so even as a kid, heaven and hell began to seem made up because it didn't make any sense. Billions and billions of galaxies and hundreds of millions of dinosaur years, and all of this was just so that God could decide that I would go to hell if I looked inside the J.C. Penney catalog and found the bra section. And the way to not go to hell was to confess this to a priest who was also not supposed to be looking at breasts that way. That didn't make a lot of sense. Like, that's a lot of planets, and that's a lot of time just to care about that one thing. So by the time I went to confession, even I knew that it wasn't about being good. It was about being seen as good. It was about fitting in. It was about doing what the grown-ups want you to do. I told the priest about the J.C. Penney catalog, and then my face ablaze with shame and embarrassment, I blurted out, "But I hated it." I didn't hate it. I loved it. It was amazing. So yeah, I'm not a Catholic any longer. I'm just a person trying to be good. And I'm old enough now to know that the pond part of Peter Singer's question is the easy part. It's like Chekhov said, any fool can handle a crisis. One time I came upon a car crash, real bad, and I spent 10 or 15 minutes that seemed like hours holding the hand of this poor, terrified little 5-year-old kid in the back seat of this completely smashed up, bent, twisted car. He had a real bad cut on his forehead, and so it looked way worse than it was. He had blood all over his face and in his eyes, and he's screaming and he's crying and he's shrieking that he couldn't see. And I just held his hand and I talked like cheerfully and steadily to him. And the whole time I was thinking, how do I get this kid out of this car if it lights on fire? And how do I get his mother, who is unconscious in the front seat, out of this car? I have no idea. And when the paramedics showed up, they went around to the other side of the car, which was not smashed up, and they just opened the damn doors. And some small part of me thought, oh. But the thing is, I'm a good person. Can't I just have a fancy cup of coffee? Where the trumpet of the Lord shall sound, and time shall be no more, and the morning breaks eternal, bright and fair. The chosen ones will gather over all the other shore, and the roll is called up beyond, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, 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 I'll be there. And on that bright and cloudless morning, when the dead in Christ shall rise, and in the glory of His resurrection share, all the saints will gather to their home beyond the skies, and the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, 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 I'll be there. Let us labor for the Master from dawn till setting sun. Oh, let's talk of all His wondrous love and care. And when all of life is over and our work on earth is done, and the roll is called up beyond, I'll be there. When the roll called up yonder, when the roll is called up yonder, when the roll is called up yonder, when the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder,